Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and yeah, it's Baby Keem and Mega Moroney, and it's Billboard BREAKDOwn.
I don't remember.
I gotta be honest, this is the sort of episode that makes me feel on the ball, even if I would argue none of the predictions I previously made were that impressive. I knew the album bombs from Mega Moroney and Baby Keem were coming, and we got them both, and of similar size to boot, but also not to the point of completely overwhelming this week, of which I am pretty grateful. Granted, part of this is rooted in me already having written the review of Baby Keem's newest project. At this point, it's exclusive for my patrons and high-level YouTube members on my main channel through my Discord, and the Mega Moroney review will probably be posted there soon too, so some of this does come easier. As will next week, when Bruno Mars is set to have an even broader impact, and I already talked about him on my main channel, but I will take any advantage I can in a pretty busy week ahead. And naturally, where all this starts is in our top 10, where Choosin' Texas by Ella Langley is back at number 1. Not entirely surprising, given that it handily has the best sales and streaming, even as radio is taking its sweet time moving on up, which makes Billboard's attempt to get ahead of all this all the more laughable. I said it a couple weeks ago. But it's also not surprising that it'll likely be overtaken next week by Bruno Mars. Either way, not exactly complaining, as this is a really good song. Who should be complaining is Olivia Dean with Man I Need rising up to number 2. The streams are up, the sales are up. She's really trying to narrow that radio margin to take the top spot. So while I expect a setback next week, courtesy of Bruno Mars and the album bomb, if she holds out a little longer, I think she's got a shot for the number 1. We'd all be better for it. Hell, I take that over Ordinary by Alex Warren, which is up to number 3 on streaming gains, because even as the radio is getting rid of it, the easy listening silent majority will ensure it's going to take its sweet time getting out, especially if there are songs around it falling off. Case in point, Opalite by Taylor Swift tumbles off the number 1 to number 4, as despite the streaming improvement, the sales advantage has fallen back, and the radio push looks to be out of gas. No real surprises there. What's also not surprising is I Just Might by Bruno Mars up to number 5. The radio adores this, even if streaming absolutely doesn't, but the album bomb Bruno Mars is going to get next week basically guarantees it's going back to number 1, even if I will guess it won't stay there for long. Then we got Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters at number 6, which had a bit of an odd week because it was pretty much stable on both radio and streaming, which basically allowed songs to fall back around it, which feels even more pronounced with The Fate of Ophelia by Taylor Swift up to number 7, which despite a slight streaming revival, it's an outright decline everywhere else. Now, a lot of this can be chalked up to DTMF by Bad Bunny falling back to number 8. The moment seems to be passing, and given that it just kind of has streaming, that's where the losses were felt acutely. And with the absence of his other songs that were previously in the top 10, we saw 2 tracks rebound. First, Back to Friends by Somber at number 9, which still has enough radio despite really being on the way out, and Folded by Kalani at number 10, which actually had a great radio week, even if the streaming is even weaker. Now that naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts, and the funny thing, after weeks of album bombs in a row, we just don't have as many as you would expect. So many songs have just been cut down early. There's really only 2 of the latter that are worth mentioning, those being Hell at Night by Big X The Plug featuring Ella Langley, having well clinched its year-end list spot for 2026, and Favorite Country Song by Hardy falling well short. Good. And as for the former, it is pretty routine. We got the expected Bad Bunny fades with Nueva York at 23, Voy a Levarte pa Puerto Rico at 52, and La Canción with J Balvin at 75, and a few for J. Cole with 2-6 at 65 and Who the Fuck Is You at 90. But the person who probably saw the sharpest losses came finally for Don Toliver. Secondhand with Rima at 71, ATM at 72, Tiramisu at 82, Gemstone at 91, Rendezvous with Yeet at 96, and Callback in 98. I think it is noteworthy that Don Toliver and that album has as much staying power as this. I'd call it more intriguing if the album was at all good. Then we saw a bunch of country songs falling back. Days Like These by Luke Combs at 56, How Far Does a Goodbye Go by Jason Aldean at 59, that horrible cover of Travelin' Soldier by Cody Johnson and his band at 73, and Plastic Cigarette by Zach Bryan off The Return down to 99. And the rest, Four Raws by SD Kid at 81, First Day Out by Pooh Shiesty at 86, and Nice to Each Other by Olivia Dean at 87. That's not too bad to handle. At all. Well, what about our gains and returns? Well, the only return we had was Time's Ticking by Justin Moore at 95. Fun fact, this actually originally returned to the Hot 100 last week at the very bottom, but Billboard literally updated the Hot 100 while I was editing to push a K-pop Demon Hunter song in, which nudged this out. Not that I care that much, as it's such an obvious ripoff is charting again, but it is worth calling out. I wish I could make more of the gains here. It's not surprising that Beautiful Things by Megan Moroney rose off the album Impact to 32, and I think that joke may have finally run its course now that we're actually at the album release. And Stateside by Pink Pantheress and Zara Larsson actually saw an Olympics boost to rise up to 13. That's kind of nifty, even if I think the remix is pretty lousy. It was also cool to see I Love It, I Love It, I Love It by Bella K get some nice groundswell at 43. I do like that song, I'll stand by it. And then when we got two returns where I'm guessing they just got some fleeting momentum near the very bottom, might take advantage of gaps above them. Rain Dance by Thames going up to 80, but also Pop That Thing by DaBaby at 64. We might have a legit comeback brewing here. But now on to the big story. A double album bomb, where both are technically big enough to qualify considering the best, the worst, and those in the top 40, and it's still going to give us a few from both to talk about. So from Baby Keem, Highway 95 Part 2 at 88, Dramatic Girl with Shea Ecru at 77, although credit to an unbelievably sticky pop rock hook there, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes viral at some point. No Security at 76, Circus Freestyle at 66, Birds and the Beads at 50, and House Money at 47. And from Megan Moroney, man, I wish the better songs from the album actually charted, like Liars and Tigers and Bears or Bells and Whistles with Casey Musgraves. But we got Convincing at 97, Stupid at 83, I Only Miss You with Ed Sheeran at 67, a shockingly traditional country song that has Sheeran in his lower register and where he actually has some chemistry with Moroney. It's a legit surprising balancing act that I kind of wish I liked more. The album's title track Cloud 9 at 63, Wedding Dress at 58, and Wish I Didn't at 41. Someone please take Kristen Bush's drum machines and distortion pedal away until he knows how to use it properly. My God. And that makes this week substantially easier. So now on to those new arrivals. Number 89, I Am Not a Lyricist by Baby Keem.
Speaking from experience, I would tell my favorite girl, please take me serious. Now she wanna fuck my girl cause she bi-curious. Mama call me bipolar, grandma call me boo man. Drugs in my baby stroller, needles in the playground sand. My auntie making love to the ice cream man. A child with the wolves, every day I am.
Okay, so there is a part of me that doesn't want to give this a lot of time, mostly because the majority of Casino is basically a validation of this song title, except that this song has legit good lyricism and storytelling against the shuffling echo of the drums and the somber pianos and strings. It's so frustrating. I really like how Baby Keem highlights his struggle to be taken more seriously and then gets neglected or exploited as a result. He does a legit impressive job painting the sad debauchery of Las Vegas where he grew up, the crime that wrecked his immediate family, the gambling and prostitution mess that drives people to the brink when they can't get away from their own vices, to say nothing of the alcoholism, where his statement of, I am not a lyricist, is built to highlight the haunted, plain-spoken pain of dealing with it all. And then he jumps into a pensive melodic bridge that's really sticky, and ends the track with a shockingly strong Andre 3000 impression. And sure, maybe some of the draw here is the fact that he's proving himself despite his own words, and if he just did that 3 Stacks impression the entire time on the album, we'd call him on it. But it's also proof Baby Keem can do a lot more than the scattered and frustrating album shows. So yeah, I think it's really good, damn close to great. But before we get to the rest that makes things more complicated, number 85, White Keys by Dominic Fike.
I have nothing but some teas and a pair of jeans. Pine trees, but it smell like weed in the front seat. You was en route to being famous and everything. White keys, cause she's way too major for everything. I wanna be a part part of it. What you got going on is in it.
So apparently off the viral success of Baby Doll, yes, I'm still peeved that that garbage is seeing any traction, Dominic Fike decided to repackage it as a single release, with this as the newer B-side. And by that I mean he was first previewing this in December 2020. I mean, at least it's marginally longer, clocking just over 2 minutes, but man, everything about this just makes my skin crawl. The insufferably smarmy faux rapping with all the millennial whoops to boot, the brittle guitars playing this stock melody, the weedy filters, the fact that it's all so compressed to add some of that Californicated by way of Florida edge because otherwise it doesn't have any. And then there's the content, talking about him on the come up alongside some girl that was apparently too good for him as he tries to reassure her the prices of fame aren't too bad, which is kind of obnoxious because by the second verse, he actually did make it and feels justified, or at least he thinks he is, in trying to get with her again, and she blows him off again, where he just sounds considerably more jilted. It honestly reminds me way too much of Black Bear with more yowling personality. The douchebaggery bleeding off this is palpable. In other words, it sucks too. Next, number 69, Sex Appeal by Baby Keem featuring Too Short.
My sex appeal. Too much sex appeal. Too much sex appeal. Too much sex appeal. Once you catch you tell. Too much sex appeal. Tell me.
So when I reviewed Casino, the reviews on my Discord, I highlighted that the album is really a fusion of 4 different sounds with a lot of whiplash between them, but it's worthwhile highlighting the ungodly fusions that sound outright awful, and this is the big one. Yes, it's got that West Coast bounce, the pianos creeping behind it are good. I'm normally a sucker for this, but then you slathered on that pitched up play with me as Baby Keem tries to split the difference between the Yin Yang twins whispering on the hook and Kid Ink's empty club bars for the verses. That was the first time you thought about Kid Ink in a decade, and the vibe just utterly dies. And that's before you actually get to the content, where he's talking about the girl having too much sex appeal, because apparently all she likes is sex and pills. And then Too Short comes in as the elder statesman in order to highlight you're not supposed to love hoes like her, they're meant for the pimp game. And when you just pair that with how sloppy Too Short's disjointed flow is, where it seems like he's consistently trying to catch up with the actual rhyme a bar late, I'm reminded why he tends to be sampled a lot more than outright featured on songs. I mean, I appreciate the nostalgia pop, I get where and why this is gonna work, but it also really sucks, and I hate that it debuted at 69. Avoid the bad jokes and this song. Number 68, Who Hurt You by Megan Moroney.
Is it a little sad as knowing I wasn't the first, and I know I won't be the last. Heart you break in half to throw right in the trash. Who hurt you so bad, bad, bad?
Alright, this one requires some context. There's long been rumors that Megan Moroney's been in a love triangle situation with Riley Green and Ella Langley, the last of which is least confirmed, but seems to be headcanon from those who read a little too deeply into Ella Langley and Riley Green's duets, where apparently Moroney dated Green for a few months last summer, and they actually both have songs about it. This Is Hers, the penultimate song on the album that managed to chart this high, and for good reason. Credit to Moroney, it's actually a really good song. A solid crescendo building off the steady bass and the electric smolder around the pedal steel. And while I think the multi-tracking starts getting a little sloppy, or it's clearly built for the sing-along, and the guitars could have really afforded to roar in the production on that bridge, there are enough quieter moments that have some dynamics and really sell how Moroney tried to buy in against all of her better instincts. That's the tragedy of the song. She initially just wanted to play it out as a fling and keep it casual, but he kept trying to show that he had more feelings. And then when she finally bought in, he dumps her for some girl who is less flashy than Megan Moroney and can better sate his ego. And just happens that she's barely legal at 21. I like a few Riley Green songs, Don't Mind If I Do is still legit fantastic, but man, all this feels extremely credible, especially as Megan Moroney tries to dig in at his fragile ego on the way out. That feels real. It's one of those songs where Moroney's exhausted vocal fry really works to sell the anger. And while I still think her production isn't giving her enough to really work with, yeah, this is really good. I'll stick up for it. Check it out. Number 57, Drag Path by 21 Pilots.
The surface as evidence, I've left there on purpose, a sad sap laying on the surface. Can you find me?
Let's not mince words. I haven't thought about 21 Pilots since Breach came out last year, and I really didn't care for it. Go see my review elaborating as to why. Suffice to say, it was a combination of bad production, frustrating lore, and defeatism combined with some questionable hooks that really pushed me away. So naturally, we got a bonus track tacked onto the end that's one of their best charting songs, his Level of Concern 6 years ago. And you know, I didn't really expect to like this, but there is more here that I appreciated than I expected. For one, it functions as a much better closer to Breach than I predicted on a thematic level, taking the downbeat, compromised ending of that album and highlighting how, despite the band's failures and losses, they left a path for the clique to follow. And there's a real sincerity in the yearning backed up by the pianos and the steady marching drums that they can indeed be found at the end. It's a legit good hook. Kind of leaves me baffled as to why 21 Pilots did not put this on the end of Breach. It would have actually gone down way smoother. I may have liked the album a lot more. I do think some of Paul Meany's production leaves some of the elements sounding blurrier than they should. Pun only partially intended, but yeah, this is a pretty great song. And even if I don't expect us to get anything from 21 Pilots in the near future, this is at least a better note to go out on. I'll take it. Number 39, Medicine by Megan Moroney.
Don't like it too much, do you? Coming back around, round, round. Ain't as fun when it's happening to you. Oh, poor you now. Who's the fool? Say I'm messing with your head again. Well, how you like the taste of your own medicine?
I really wish this wasn't the song that got so much traction from Megan Moroney. It's her highest debut this week, because on subject matter alone, it's the sort of cut that really turns me off. The, oh, my partner is treating me bad, so I'm gonna treat him worse, but not really do that much, just make him feel like shit. Maybe just imply that I might cheat on him. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for a good revenge song. I grew up on Miranda Lambert and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. That can work. But this is just mind games and pettiness to give him a taste of his own medicine. And while I can appreciate flipping some of the gendered stereotypes thrown at women who question bad guys back on him, it feels like the wrong lesson may have been learned here. You can just dump him. Of course, the other thing is that Megan Moroney's not a strong singer, and when she's in her tired, husky register against production that is so jaunty, with the choppy strumming and the saloon piano and the pedal steel, it just doesn't have anything close to the punch to really sell it. Not help when Christian Bush has left so much of the low end and percussion feeling weirdly muddy. It's kind of a shame because I am a sucker for a good honky-tonk jam. This is in that canon, but yeah, it's mediocre. Didn't do it for me. Number 37, Casino by Baby Keem.
Way heavy, I'm out of a ride, dog, you gotta come get me. Why she always talking like she understand me? I fuck with the nerds, on stage I go Lenny. I don't have family, so why keep a palace? My nigga Dave bought so many watches, I went and got one and I didn't even dial it.
Look, if you know me, you probably think the reason I don't like this is because of the crushed chiptune production that opens up the song, where Baby Keem is trying his whole Rage impersonation, wanted to jump in on Playboi Carti. And look, that's never gonna be fully my thing. But then you get into what Baby Keem's actually saying on the track, where he's saying he doesn't have a family, so why keep a palace? And okay, I get the trauma response, but you very much have a family. It's the only reason why anyone cares that much about you. More on that in a bit. But okay, let's presume he's talking about his immediate family. The album highlights how badly things have gone there, where he's trying to highlight the luck he's found in getting out and how it's not even exciting him. A variant of the whole more money, more problems arc. And then the song switches up with this incredibly obnoxious la-la crooning cutting through the melody, where amidst all the flexing, he's now threatening to cut off the family that he doesn't have if they cross him, including a sample of the Ramones' Blitzkrieg Bop for what barely passes as a hook, even if the recording fidelity doesn't match at all. Now, to give Baby Keem a bit of credit, I thought the stomach line on the second verse, I think that's passable, but when I hear him sound like he's constantly on the verge of tears as he tries to protest that he's got nothing left to prove, I'm sorry, I just check out. This is a barely coherent pileup of a song where he does indeed have a lot to prove, and where Baby Keem can't even credibly establish a stake or a hook. It's not the worst song on the album, but damn, it's close. And finally, number 37, Good Flirts by Baby Keem featuring Kendrick Lamar and Momo Boy.
It's been over, we've been over, yet you always called my phone on a Friday night. It's been over twice, it's been over, we've been over.
See, songs like this charting the way they do is why I find Baby Keem so frustrating. His biggest success is tied to his famous and considerably better cousin, even when Kendrick is obviously slumming it here. And that's kind of a shame because I actually think the faint wheedles and elongated guitar phrases against the sandy patter of percussion is pretty nice. And even if Baby Keem is once again reminding me of Kid Ink and the croon rapping, the plaintive frustration of the hook is pretty tight. And Momo Boyd adds a nice contrast on the post-chorus. Again, my problem is probably Kendrick here. You can tell he sounds more checked out trying to play on to his flirt game with a line about how he gossips like Young Thug does with Mariah the Scientist. I really wish that was funnier, like following the set of ad-libs where he gets interrogated and someone tells him to fuck that bitch and he's like, you know what, I was about to, and you really convinced me. And look, Kendrick can be funny. I kind of like it when he's looser, and you can tell he's not taking this seriously. That platinum plaque in the coochie line convinced me of that. I just kind of wish he brought more energy, and that might be the problem of deliberately not trying to overpower his extremely limited cousin. So yeah, maybe the humor might grow a bit on me here. The hook is good. I mean, the ingredients of a promising song are there, but as of now, just okay. I'll give it that. And that's our week. Man, it's a strange one to parse. Thank God the worst fell out fast, with Sex Appeal by Baby Keem and Too Short getting that bottom spot, and White Keys by Dominic Fike is gonna snag the dishonorable mention. Y'all should be aware that Casino was dangerously close to that spot too. As for the best, you know what? I'm going for a tie at the top between Baby Keem and I Am Not a Lyricist, with 21 Pilots and Drag Path, which again really caught me off guard by how much that song solves a lot of issues that I had with Breach. And Megan Moroney's gonna get the honorable mention. That's gonna go for Who Hurt You. Not surprising there, even if there were better songs in her album too. Next week, it's Bruno Mars coming. Stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.